Hello everybody and welcome to episode number 2 of Master's Thesis Magic, the series where we play some funky janky decks of Magic the Gathering while we discuss really important things about how to do your master's thesis, having fun and actually using it to get a job or even get a publication. And today, the title of the video is One Weird Trick to Choose Your Thesis Topic. And the reason I am making this video is that most people go about choosing their thesis topic in the wrong way. And what is the wrong way, you might ask? Simple. The wrong way is by looking at the literature, looking at what you're interested in, finding a gap in the literature, doing a literature review. That's wrong, okay? The right way to go about it is by thinking about what sort of data can you collect in the space of time that you have to collect data, okay? What data can you get? That's the question that you need to ask yourself to decide what is your thesis topic, okay? The reason is that the thesis topics or research topics require specific types of data, right? So if you're just asking your friends to fill out a survey, you cannot do a thesis on how CEOs deal with technological disruption because your friends are not CEOs, okay? So that's why data has to come first. The second reason why data has to come first is that collecting data is difficult. So you cannot just pick whatever data you need for your thesis. You will be limited in what data you can collect. And data collection, this is what you need to realize. Data collection is really difficult and really time consuming. It is the key bottleneck in your thesis, okay? People don't want to respond to surveys. They take their sweet time to respond to surveys. They send you incomplete surveys, so you have to send your survey out again and get more answers. People don't want to talk to you, they don't want to do interviews, but even if they do, each interview is about an hour, and then each hour of interview takes 6 hours to transcribe. So if you're doing like 15 interviews, that's 90 hours, 90 hours of work just to get the data, just even before the analysis, right? And then companies and CEOs and so on, they're really afraid of what I call student spying, which is some really unethical practice that some startups and so on do, and they send people into companies saying that they're students, and sometimes actually are, but they're actually not interviewing for a thesis or for a class project. They're interviewing because this startup or this consulting company needs the information, and that's obviously very, very dishonest, okay? So what you need to do is you need to ask yourself honestly, what sort of data can I get? And then when you have those data, when you know what data you can get, then you choose your thesis topic. And then you can, go crazy. You can pick up, there are loads of thesis topics that you can pick. You can look at the literature, you can follow your interests, but only after making sure or realizing what sort of data you can get, okay? So, what sort of data can master students realistically get? And obviously, if your mother is a CEO of a large company, you can get data from that company, I know. But so let's talk about the overall master students population. What sort of data can you get? Essentially, you can get 3 types of data, okay? You can get data from your friends, okay? And data from your friends is basically customer, what I call customer questions. So this is about, people's attitude towards new products, people's attitudes towards innovation, people's attitudes towards specific types of technology, and so on and so forth. So just your friends are, students with, a specific outlook on life, and they can give you data about how the general population will thinks about and reacts to certain things, okay? Then you have your parents and their friends, okay? And with your parents and their friends, you can ask questions about work, okay? So for example, if you want to do a study about people's response to innovation, and for example, what drives people's adoption of social networks such as Facebook and Instagram. Well, you can do a survey and ask your friends about a bunch of things. So for example, what they think about the social networks that they use, and then you can ask a bunch of personality variables, and then you'll get an answer, right? So you get a thesis. The research question for that thesis is, how do personality traits shape people's use of online social networks? You can also ask that to your parents and to their friends, but you can also ask other questions. So for example, a bunch of my students have worked on this topic of what do people do at work when they're not working, right? So you cannot ask that to other students like yourself, but you can ask that to any working adult, right? And so you can ask this to your mom, to your dad, or to your dads, or to your moms if you have two of those. You can ask this to your aunts and uncles. You can ask this to your grandparents. You can ask this to their friends. Any adult that works can answer this question for you. So this is, these are some questions that your friends cannot answer, but that working adults can answer. So these are, I'd say, generic questions about work. Obviously, you cannot ask enough people on your parents' social circle about how CEOs deal with disruptive change unless your parents have a very specific social circle. Okay. The final data that you have are what I call captive audiences. Okay. So typically these are the people around you where you are doing an internship, right? So you can send out a survey to the company where you're doing an internship, or you can interview people in that company, or you can observe these people at work. And and you'll have access, right? Why will you have access? Because you're already there. So you don't have to negotiate the access. People won't be afraid that you're like spying on them. You're already there. So a bunch of my students have done this, right? They've done interviews. None of them have actually done surveys just because they're working in relatively small teams, but they've done interviews, they've done observation, and they've even written like case studies based on, the team, the company where they're doing their internship. And this is, if you're doing an internship during your thesis, this is great data collection opportunity. Now, don't forget that, if you don't have any friends, if your parents are in another country and you can't really interview people and their friends, if you're not doing an internship, there's still plenty, and we discussed this in episode 1, there's still plenty of stuff that you can use. So for example, you can use data sources such as documents if you're doing qualitative research. I told you about the study that one of my students did of business plans, or you can use secondary quantitative data sources. We talked about GDP and happiness indexes, that will make data collection super quick. I'd say if you do that, you're losing out on, for me, the fun of data collection, of, doing the surveys and talking to people. And there's also a skill there that a skill set that you want to acquire. So you're missing out. But but if you do have trouble getting people to fill in your surveys or finding people to interview, you can definitely use documents and secondary quantitative data. Okay. Now, what you need to remember is this: the data that you have when you begin your thesis is the data that you have at the end of your thesis. Meaning that if you don't know 20 CEOs to interview when you're thinking about your research question, you won't find 20 CEOs to interview, okay? If you need to do case studies on 5 companies when you're thinking about your research question, and you don't know people in 5 companies, you won't have 5 companies to do a case study, okay? So you need to be realistic, and you need to think what sort of data do I have? Okay, so again, you have your friends, you have your parents and their friends, and you have your internship, people at your internship. Or if you don't have any of these people, then you have documents or secondary quantitative data. Once you have this, then do your thesis, right? So, for example, my student that did a thesis on blockchain, it would be super cool to see, how business plans came about, how the idea came about. But he couldn't interview these people. He didn't have access to these people to interview. And the process of generating ideas is not documented on the business plan. What is documented on the business plan is a value proposition. So you code that, you code the value proposition. Okay? So the research question came after understanding the constraints of the data that were available. My student didn't know anybody that was working in a blockchain startup, so he could not do interviews, he could not do surveys. Okay, so what data can you get first, and then you choose your topic. Great. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys, and I hope you enjoy the games too as well. Janky deck as usual. Don't forget to give a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you on the next one. Have fun, guys.